Good day, I'm Lee Johnson and welcome back to my channel. And today I wanted to talk about, well, this is actually something that came up from a friend, a very good friend, Helena, who was watching my servitor playlist and was quite fascinated that, these things can actually be done. So I wanted to talk about how energy can be manipulated and morphed into an actual being, an actual servitor. But first, the intro. Okay, if this is your first time on this channel and you like my content, please do all the usual stuff. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you know when new videos come out. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can hit the join button. As I mentioned previously, a friend of mine, Helena, was watching the servitor playlist and just basically commented that it's quite fascinating that all of this stuff can be done with Magick. And I think it's quite a valid and important comment and question, really. When we think about Magick, there are certain models that people explain how it works. For instance, if we are speaking specifically about sigil magic, we may talk about the model of how the sigil, the glyph, is transferred from the conscious to the unconscious mind, and through the trance state we bypass the psychic senses, etc., etc. But when we're talking about magic in general, we're talking about manipulation of energy to our will. And that happens with all forms of magic, no matter what it is. Everything is energy, and we interact with that energy on a daily basis, but in different ways. If you think about it, if we just walk down the passage, we are shifting the air around us. That air is energy, and our body is a ball of energy. It's energy lines and energy filaments that are just moving all the time. Have a look into Chinese medicine and have a look into the meridians that flow through the body. It's all just this bundle and ball of energy that we really are in reality. So if you're walking down the passage, it's this energy which is passing through energy, and all of that is combined. We can look into Avir and Ruchaniyat from Kabbalah, which is universal energy, and the universal energy is unformed energy, and when it becomes Ruchaniyat, it comes into a body and it becomes formed. But that energy flows in and out of that body constantly, all the time. So we're all connected. Everything's connected by this constant flow of energy. So when we're working with Magick, I like to sort of imagine it as picking up on these filaments, these threads of energy, and forming them or directing them in a particular manner, in a particular way. We can build up a ball of energy in front of us and find the thread that it needs to travel along to get to its destination, to its target, and then push it. That ball of energy would be imbued with the intent, with the desire, with the will that you have for that particular spell working, and then you push it along this thread. There are some advanced practices where you actually work with the threads. You pluck one thread, almost like a spider web as well. Nice way to think of it actually is that it's this huge spider web, and you feel the vibrations that are happening on a particular thread within that spider web, and you can pluck that thread and send vibrations back, or back to its source, back to its target. So all of this is actually working with the energy that is flowing constantly around us, through us, in us, forming into bodies, and then flowing beyond that body and flowing into the cosmos and flowing into other bodies. So there's this constant back and forth of energy which just keeps flowing constantly. And, you know, if we look specifically at servitors, that's very much the creation of an intelligent being. That servitor, that being that we're creating, becomes a ball of energy, and that ball of energy gets programmed with a certain intent, with a certain task, and then it's sent off to go do that task. So what we're doing, you know, depending on the form that we're using to actually create the servitor, but for instance, if we are using the elements to actually fill this ball of energy, we may be using the fire energy, for instance. So we pull in the fire energy. It's energy, and it gets pulled into the body, and then it gets transmuted and pushed out of the body and formed into this ball. So it's a concentration of that particular energy, and then that energy then gets imbued with our will, with our desire. Those could be, you know, we usually think of that as thought. So we speak to it, but in order to tell it what to do, we first have to think it. And thought is energy. Thought itself is energy. A lot of people like to explain thoughts as radio waves, which emit from our heads. But that thought is energy. And when that thought then gets transferred into speech, we speak it, and that the vibrations that come out of our mouth, again, is energy. I think you can see what I'm trying to say here. All of this is energy. If it's thought, it's energy. It comes out of it emits as waves. If we transmute that thought into speech, that speech is a vibration which is energy and gets pushed into a particular thing. So we've pulled in a particular element, that the energy of that element gets pushed through the body, it gets pushed out of the hands, and it gets formed, concentrated into this concentrated ball of the element itself. Then we have a thought, which is energy that gets transferred to speech, which gets vibrated out into that ball of energy, and that's energy itself being pushed into energy. That energy is imbued with our will, with our intent. And then that energy is then sent off along a line of energy to go and do its task, to go and meet its target, etc. So all of this is working with energy, and because everything is energy, it becomes possible. So when it comes to magic, I like to think in these terms, is that, you know, everything is energy, energy flows everywhere, and we can form this energy how we want to, how we will it. You can even take this into a non-magical scenario. Let's take the mob mind, for instance. You have a group of people which become a mob. They all start to believe the same thing. They start to flow in the same direction. They become a mob. And it's only when that mob mind is broken that they realize that they were just being pushed with this flow of energy, and it was so powerful that they couldn't actually stop themselves, they couldn't control themselves, they were totally taken over by this flow of energy, and they became part of the mob. But once that energy is shattered, is broken, then they become their own individual selves again, and they flow in their own direction. But it's a flow of energy which pushes them, which takes them, and it's just all energy. If we look at the world, you know, our surroundings as we see them, it's all again energy. You know, you may look at a tree or a wall or your computer or your phone and you see a physical three-dimensional object, but science has even realized that what we see externally to ourselves is only 2 dimensions. The brain interprets it as 3 dimensions. The brain fills in all the bits and pieces. Beyond ourselves, beyond our eyes, there is no color, there's no smell, there is no shape, there's nothing really, it's just energy. But what happens is there's certain refractions and reflections and vibrations that happen. So the light gets reflected off the energy of the body into our eyes, and the brain then interprets everything that we're seeing. So we see 3 dimensions, we see colors, scents come into our nose as vibrations, and the brain interprets those vibrations as being certain scents. Sounds are vibrations which come into the eardrum and hit the eardrum, and the brain interprets those sounds as particular sounds. But all of this is just it's vibrations, it's energy. So everything we experience, everything around us is purely just energy, and we can take that energy and form it into different things. So that's really, it's just a nice way to actually view the whole magical process, I think. And it's one that I like to use myself. Especially when it comes to things like servitors. But as I say, I mean, if you're doing candle magic, you may go through the process of putting oil on the candle, of praying over the candle, of putting herbs on the candle and around the candle, and then lighting it. And you know, you may interpret that whole process as just being, you're thinking it, therefore it will be. But I like to consider it a bit more than that. You're not just thinking about it. Those thoughts are energy. The vibration from the herbs themselves and from the oils, the energy that's imbued in them, and the natural energies of the herbs, they get added to magic. So you've got this, I'm going to say a plate that your candle's on and the herbs are on, the oil's on. But there's this buildup of energy that happens because of the oils and the herbs, and because you've prayed over it, you've concentrated this energy. You've concentrated your thoughts and your speech into this small area, which is the candle and the plate that the candle's on, and that then becomes this ball of energy, this ball of spell working that you are filling with this particular task, with this particular thing. And then as the candle burns, your intent is that then goes off to its target and does what it needs to, and therefore through that process of burning the candle, you are letting the energy move along its filament, along its thread, to reach its target. And you know, especially with things like servitor, or not servitor, sorry, sigil magic, we speak about lusting after results. So once you finish your spell working, you then forget about it. And the reason for that is because you may start questioning the working you were doing. Did you do it right? Should you have done it another way, etc., etc. And what happens is, as that ball of energy is moving along its thread, you know, you've got these other thoughts that come, and those thoughts again are energy, and those thoughts come and they start hitting this ball of energy which is going along this line, this thread, and as they're hitting, they start to knock the ball of energy off course, and it may shift onto a different thread and go into a completely different direction where it has absolutely no purpose, and therefore it doesn't actually fulfill the spell working that your desire was intended for. But all of it can be seen as energy, working with energy, moving energy through the body. The thoughts are energy, speech is vibration, which is energy. All of it's just freaking energy. Everything's just freaking energy. Simple as that, really. So that's just a nice way to look at magic, I think. And I wanted to actually just talk about that today, because I thought it was important. That's it for today. And so I'll see you next week, Tuesday. Go and have a look at my website, leewjohnson.com. If you haven't already, and you can go listen to my podcast. My podcast is really just taking some of the most popular or more popular videos, the ones that have been commented on more, viewed more, over a 6-month period, and then for that season I redo the text and redo the script and put it into a blog post, and also use it as a transcript for the podcast episode. So have a listen to my podcast and read my blog. Have a look at my services. My books are there. Everything's on my website, leewjohnson.com. And anyway, so I'll see you next week, Tuesday. Have a great week. Cheers for now.